I'm Jeremy Till, and this is Amplify. Cassandra Stoklosa is on with us today, guys. Very excited to hear her insights and view on climbing the ladder in corporate America. Today, it's a free agency in the sense of the business world, and getting that next job opportunity is super important on the people you know, working the online platforms like LinkedIn and making connections necessary to get your next promotion. She's done it. She's a young business-minded person, and she's going to be sharing insights, so let's get into it. All right, guys, excited to be here today. This is Jeremy Till coming from the Austin, Texas ATX, this capital of the great state of Texas. Who doesn't want to be in Austin? I was talking to Nicole earlier about that. I think it's a great place. We see so many people transplanting and moving here from all over the country and the world, and we're really excited about our guest today, Cassandra. And then tell me your last name, Cassandra.
Stoklosa.
Stoklosa. We're getting a little bit into her history and the origin of her family and all that good stuff. So we're really excited about Cassandra. Cassandra's, I want to divulge first off, she's a client. She's been with CrossFit Central for over 13 months and seen phenomenal transformation in her own health and wellness and lifestyle. And she also dragged her sister into this ordeal as well, this thing we call CrossFit, and has had an awesome lifestyle transformation as well. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but primarily what we're bringing on Cassandra, and I'll let her talk here in a second, is Cassandra is definitely an up-and-comer and mover and shaker in the marketing world. She has been with Walmart previously, and now she's with Golfsmith, which is a company based out of Austin. It was a transplant, she said. What was that you said it was?
From New Jersey.
It was from New Jersey.
New Jersey garage to Texas.
Awesome. So, and then what did you describe it as? It was...
it's the world's largest specialty golf retailer.
Yeah, awesome. So we're going to get into that and talk about her, really I see quest in dominating the market, because she is, she might come in as a cat, but I think she might be a lion underneath there. So we're going to get excited. We're going to get started to talk to her and hear a little bit about her. So Cassandra, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So first off, I just want you to share a little bit about your corporate career, because, in Austin, sometimes we all think about local Austin, but there's also some major movers in the market space in Austin coming into town, and kind of talk about your career starts in the corporate America, and then segue us into what you're doing with Golfsmith now.
Yeah, sure. So there's definitely all the transplant companies, like you mentioned, from my hometown of San Francisco, California. So I grew up in the Silicon Valley, kind of always knew that I was going to get into the business space after college. So I actually started off, I was consulting first as a marketing analytics consultant, so kind of got my base in how to do marketing math and stuff. I really found that my passion was in media, and specifically content marketing and creating new ad units with vendors, and just sort of really kind of being a client on the media side. So jumped over into that in New York for a couple years, and then moved to Austin for the first time to attend business school here at the University of Texas. Great 2 years, had the best time. Left there, went to go work on the media services team at Walmart for 3 years, and then recently got an offer to come back to Austin with Golfsmith. Couldn't be more excited to return to this city. I love it. So happy to be back now here. And so, as you mentioned, I am the director of marketing at Golfsmith.
Nice. So, I think a lot of Austinites don't know that Golfsmith is actually, their world headquarters is here. So tell us about Golfsmith as a whole and the history here and kind of what Golfsmith is up to, because the sport of golf, I think in the last years has definitely seen its maybe, if you will, ups and downs, seeing athletes like Tiger Woods maybe having a lull in athletes, and now Jordan coming onto the scene, kind of reviving the young generation of golfers and the potential of the sport. So tell us about Golfsmith and its role in that, and its role in Austin.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, definitely when people think of big brands in Austin, everyone thinks Dell. That's what comes to mind first. And so actually, I didn't even realize that Golfsmith was headquartered here when I was looking for retail jobs to sort of transition to after Walmart. And luckily, just had a friend who had gone from Walmart to Golfsmith and talked to her a lot about it. But it's sort of just hidden up there, kind of North Austin, running very low, kind of a low profile here in terms of one of the major brands. But, we've got the distribution center up there. We run web out of there as well. So it's pretty key. And then as you sort of get into kind of the space here, there is a lot of people who I feel like who have done a rotation up at Golfsmith who have stuck locally around the city. But you're totally right. I mean, it's definitely mixed results right now in golf. We hear kind of from the studies that golf actual like playership is down, but then when you look at ratings, they're definitely improving. People like Jordan and Rory are really just coming into the sport and making people excited about it again. And now we have like kind of this whole drama with whether or not Tiger is going to come back. So it feels like a really good time for golf to sort of be poised for, definitely another takeoff at least.
Yeah, and so we just had the Masters. I know you were out there, I think you said with ESPN. And tell us about the Masters, your experience out there.
Yeah, so I had the greatest time. The Masters has been something that's always been on my bucket list. And for those of you that know how difficult it is to get tickets, I mean, it's pretty much impossible. So when I was offered the chance to go, I went with Golf Magazine and Sports Illustrated, and another girl as well. And we had kind of the best time. It is everything. It lives up to the hype and more. They have done such a good job of maintaining everything about the brand. It is totally untouchable. You get in there, people are polite, they're nice. I mean, it is almost like being in another country for 3 days. It's great.
Whoa. Now, do you know the entity that operates the Masters and who produces it?
Yeah, so Augusta National Golf Club.
Awesome. That's great. And then kind of segueing also back to Austin, I know that we had recent golf, I guess.
Yeah, so the Dell Tournament Invitational was here,
Right.
And that turned out to be a huge success. They did like limit tickets and some stuff, which we've not seen before in tournaments, but it seemed to actually make for a really good experience for the people that went, that I talked to at least. And it was super fun to watch on TV. I mean, you definitely, in the same way that, when we watched CrossFit Open and they launched kind of the workouts and you get to see people go head to head, being able to watch golfers go head to head kind of like has that whole same excitement. So it works really well.
That's awesome. So now I know that you've had some recent promotions within your role at Golfsmith. So talk about your journey there, because I think you entered in a certain level, and I think you're maybe running everything now in the marketing department. Is that about right?
It feels that way. Yeah, definitely when I go home and I still got about 8 hours worth of work, it does feel like that. But yeah, I came in as the director of omnichannel media, and so it was a very media-specific role. And as I've kind of told you, like that's really where my passions lie in marketing. So for me to be able to like not only come back to a retailer in Austin, but to come in the exact specialty that I like has been great. And then it's sort of just expanded from there. I think that what a lot of people see in their career is kind of as you grow, you're forced to get more general and to get cross-functional. And so I tried to do that in the beginning of my career where I went into a lot of fields that I knew I really didn't like, but I sort of had to check the box to get them out of the way and have that experience. And it's been good for me here because it's enabled me to grow, and I've taken on kind of the email areas like operations, all of online marketing, budgeting, and now actually I'm even over creative as well. So kind of getting that both left brain, right brain kind of thing going on as well.
That's awesome. And what did you say? You went from managing 2 individuals, now you're operating a team of 28?
Yeah, so it's been a big growth in terms of like management. So that's been definitely one of the areas of growth I've been trying to focus on this year is just like how do you motivate a team? How do you keep people motivated that are working for you? When you're working in retail, it's 24/7. I mean, the online operations are always open and the web team sits kind of in our same area. So we are constantly supporting them, and the doors never close there. So you got to be on, you've got to be ready to be on call. And so the people that work for me do have like an incredible schedule and an incredible workload that they've got to maintain. So it's like, how do you keep people working at that level for extended periods of time?
Yeah, that's a great question. A part of our podcast is about leadership, and what resources are you going to become a better leader, or workshops, like really what's appealing to you in the process of where you're at in your career?
Yeah, so I go to kind of everything that I'm invited to in terms of leadership conferences. I definitely take the time to go to those. I also spend a significant amount of time since I've hopped kind of company to company and city to city, I have mentors kind of all over the country that I spend time really checking in with, spending a lot of time with, and they're kind of who I get my best advice from. And they're really great for being able to pick up the phone and call someone in the moment and say, I'm dealing with this problem at work. How would you kind of walk me through how to deal with it?
That's great. And so you're kind of like an example of someone that is young, that is pursuing the corporate career. And then, for any listeners that are like, man, how'd you get the jobs? Or, you really have a great resume. What was your approach? I know that you've done maybe some education with Lewis House on LinkedIn marketing or, for job career stuff. So what was your process in that?
Yeah, so it is more and more that I kind of get up in the world, I realize it's more about who you know than anything else. So I maintain contact with people who, I used to work with 10 years ago, and I still talk with them on a regular basis. And I think it's not keeping up relationships to be fake by any means. This week, I actually got to hire a girl who used to work for me 4 years ago. So, you want to like put in what you get out from it. So you definitely want to figure out ways to pay back other people for the help that you're getting. But I've done everything from just kind of keeping in touch with everyone. I have been, I would say, probably the most proactive job seeker out of like my friend set than I think of anybody I know. My resume is always up to date. I'm always willing to talk to a headhunter when they call. If anything, it just solidifies that where you are and what you're doing is the right fit for you. But I'm always looking for the next thing. And it's just whether or not it ends up being in my company or outside of, I'm always kind of ready to take the next step.
Absolutely. So that's another theme within this podcast is just understanding that we live in a day and age that, we're constantly changing. Transition is more the norm than consistent. And so, with individuals in the job market, especially millennials coming into the space, with the expectation of career, your mentality is change. Mm-hmm. And you see friends that don't have that mentality struggling or suffering a little bit more because that next opportunity is not coming up?
Yeah, so I definitely see kind of like two things. Like the first is that people are kind of scared to take the jump. Like they want to leave, they're prepared to do it. They might even get their resume together and sort of interview around. But when it comes right down to pulling the trigger and making kind of a big jump, and by big jump, I mean like taking a job across the country because it would offer you a 2-level promotion or taking a step back, but to get into a field that you want to do. I see people pump the brakes like right before it's about to get so easy because once you make the decision to go do it, it just sort of, and coming from someone who's done this multiple times, it just sort of all falls into place. Like there becomes this whole to-do list of stuff you have to do once you decide you're going to do it. But people sort of freeze like up right before there, or they just continue to sort of like feel that they should be able to stay where they are and get the rewards that they think that they deserve. And a lot of times you can't do that with companies. Like companies value a certain skill set at a certain level. And so if you want to grow, you've got to go find a company that values your skill set at the next level.
We should dig into that. I think you were sharing that with me the other day. So whenever, describe that a little bit more in real terms. Like what does that look like in an example?
Yeah, so let's just say that you are an accountant for a mom and pop shop and they're not really growing, and so they need an accountant to do X. Like as you stay there for 2 or 3 years, what I generally see is people say, well, now I feel like I should be a senior accountant here. And it's like, well, have you taken on a tremendous amount of additional opportunities or additional roles? And they say, no, not really. And it's more of a seniority thing. Like once they've kind of put in their time, they expect to sort of get promoted. And I just don't see companies doing that anymore. Mm-hmm. Like that definitely existed in the past where you kind of
is seniority dead?
I kind of think so. I mean, it's getting to the point now where I'm not going to say that, some brand new person straight out of college is going to go steal everyone's jobs. But as you start to move up, it's the people that are pushing hard to move up and continually have the drive that are surpassing people who are kind of just putting in the time.
Yeah, that's truth. So let's kind of take a little bit of a pivot and talk about like the recent 13 months of your pursuit of health and wellness. I think that 6 months prior to that, you had gotten started in CrossFit.
Yeah.
And then you moved to Austin and found your way over to CrossFit Central. And then kind of share what your goals are with your health and wellness and what's happened for you.
Sure. Yeah. So I would say probably 6 months before I moved to Austin, I kind of had a whole mentality shift of the fact that I had been, working really hard, putting in long hours, but I wasn't really doing a lot of stuff for myself. And I also wasn't a super positive person. So I did kind of a joint thing of where I was like, I'm going to do something for me, which was join CrossFit and block out the time for it. And then I was also going to try to be a lot nicer. leader. Like I realized that like my brand with like people that I worked with and people that I knew thought that I was really smart. But even though people would describe me as like a nice person, it wasn't what came to mind first. So I tried to really go out of my way to write thank you notes, stop by people's desks, tell them how much I appreciated them, and kind of just throw that out there to the universe. And so I did like 6 months of that, totally changed my my attitude. And so then kind of when I got back here to Austin and found CrossFit Central, I was definitely like kind of ready to take it to the next level on just my fitness and overall health and wellness. And over the last like 13 months, as you've seen, like I've gotten great results. Like I came here with the goal of just kind of getting back in shape, losing some weight that I had definitely put on while I was working nonstop. And I mean, I've far exceeded that. I've lost 20 pounds in the last 13 months. My fitness levels have gone like off the charts. Like I've probably added, 40, 50 pounds to certain lifts. I've added skills and it's just been great. And like the most satisfying part of it is it seems to have been really effortless coming in and just I tried a lot of stuff that was really hard to maintain and hard to do for years at a time, but this has been like just following what you guys have told me to do for diet and for like showing up to class, doing that kind of stuff. It's actually been pretty easy.
No, that's great. Well, so I want to go back to your first of what you're saying because it's really awesome. Congratulations on all that. But it's like I really think in shifts and people's mindsets and then the results follow. What made you choose to switch to a positive attitude and become more friendly? Did something happen like specific?
Yeah, I mean, I just sort of got caught in just nonstop work, and I got into like a spiral. And one of the people who were mentoring me in Arkansas, she was kind of like, "You're doing great here. Everyone loves working with you. They all think you're super smart, but like, are you happy doing this?" And I was like, "No, like I'm really not." And I mean, sure, she could tell. I'm sure a lot of my close friends could tell. But once I realized that I wasn't happy doing it and that wasn't what was going to make me happy long term, I knew then that I was going to have to leave. And I've always kind of noticed that moving has always really helped me kind of reset. But this time I wanted to do a jump start on my like reset where I was like, I knew I was going to move. So I wanted to put myself in the right frame of mind to kind of hit the ground running when I got to my new place.
Got it. And so why did health and fitness come to mind first to do that?
It was definitely something that I've always done throughout my life, and I let just like fall by the wayside for about, I would say, a year and a half. I almost stopped working out entirely for like a 6-month period. And I've always been super active. Like I played basketball in high school. I did like competitive running, ran marathons in college. And so it's not ever been something that has been outside of my personality. And it was kind of weird that in fact it did fall off. So it was one of the things that I really felt like I had to reset to sort of get back to my old self.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel like when you got back into fitness that it kind of helped you to be more positive? Did it change your emotional state?
Totally. I mean, I still to this day like can come in and like really be not feeling it in the morning, and we'll go through a workout and I am a completely different person. I think that it's sort of just it's a nice reminder to me every day that like stuff is going to feel really hard, but then it's going to feel great when it's over. So you just got to kind of keep going.
That's awesome. So congratulations on that as well. And then tell us, I know your sister's had great results too. And I don't
My sister's catching me, Jeremy. We got to get on this. This isn't good.
Just share a little tidbit. We don't have to go into our whole story. Just a little bit about how it positively impacted you and how you shared it with your sister.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I saw great results already and I was seeing great results. My sister and I have always been very competitive, as you probably noticed in the gym. And so she was kind of getting on me about how, I was losing all this weight and I was kind of giving her my old clothes too. So, I was really rubbing it in her face a little bit. So she had like gone through a bunch of different health stuff. She has an autoimmune issue. She had a thyroid problem over the last few years. And she kind of went to every doctor, I think, in Austin, both, natural doctors to like, straight pharmaceutical recommendations, and just didn't really get anywhere with that. And she'd kind of been struggling with it for, I'd say, probably 3 years. When I told her, I finally just said to her, the only thing you haven't tried is actually just trying to exercise, because a lot of doctors told her to go on straight bed rest. And so I said, I feel so great. Like, I love CrossFit. I think you'd really like it. I think it fits your personality. And so then I actually brought her in here and she is killing it. she is about to catch me in terms of sizes, which is going to kill me because I've been rubbing in her face now for 13 months. But yeah, I mean, she lost a ton of weight in the IM. She lost 20 pounds of body fat in an 8-week period. So she's like so happy. Her blood work and her results are off the chart, and she's doing great.
Yeah, and her total weight loss was what, 40 pounds you said?
Yep.
Oh, that's life-changing.
And counting, so you know.
Yeah.
She's going to have to level out soon.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Well, cool. So now I just kind of want to shift again in our interview and just talk a little bit about, some takeaways that you've experienced or learned that you might feel that could be good for, I think you really are speaking to the millennial base of people between the ages of like 27 to 34, that are like super career oriented, super motivated to climb the ladder if they're in the corporate realm. And, how would I get ahead? And what would be some key insights that you would suggest for them? So like just anything that's off the top of your head that you would like, you would highly recommend.
Yeah, so I think there's almost kind of like two phases that you go through during like that age, or at least I did. And the first one was like, I was totally on the gas about everything. I was always looking for the next promotion. I was always looking for the next job. If anybody needed a volunteer for a project or a task force, I was on it. And so I just was constantly like pushing for everything. And when you're pushing that hard, you really feel like everything should sort of be falling into place, and it doesn't. And so I think that over the last like 2 years, my mindset has really shifted to like, I feel good about where I am now. Like as I start to like look around, and like once I took like a deep breath and a second to realize like that, I'm doing pretty well for my age and where I'm at, it really started to like, that's when things did fall into place. Like, so it started to become then where the next job was finding me, like all like the next stage of which I needed to expand to. Like, for example, I knew that I always needed to get into creative, and I just hadn't ever looked for that opportunity because I felt like I was still too junior to look for it. That opportunity found me. And so I think that as you sort of like keep pushing on the gas, at some point you got to realize that there is a time where you need to kind of step off of it, because otherwise you're just going to burn yourself out, and that doesn't help anything. So I would just tell them to kind of keep an eye on when they feel like they're in that mindset where they're ready to make a transition and ready to try to just see if things start to come to them, because that's going to be really important for your longevity of your career. And the one thing that I've kind of learned is that you have to play the long game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, it seems like that first mindset you're describing is building momentum. Mm-hmm. And then once that momentum goes, another trick of that is whenever you let off the gas, if you haven't put in the right work or made the right connections, that momentum can slow down.
Totally.
And so there is a fine balance in knowing when to push and when to, let back a little bit. So I like that. So I think momentum is crucial in career. So if you, as you see yourself going into the future and, the next decade in space, I know we talked about big box retail, and like how Amazon's impacting the market, and kind of where do you see yourself moving into the future?
Yeah, so from like a big box standpoint, like the thing about retail that I'm finding is that brick and mortar has to figure out what brick and mortar is good at. And so kind of like if you think about like Radio Shack back when they were going through like their big issues, I remember talking about this one when I was consulting, just because a lot of us had connections and would talk about it. And we always used to say like they should have just turned themselves into the 7-Eleven of electronics, because that's all you ever go to Radio Shack for is you need a cable, you need a battery, you need this, you need that. And if they would have just gone to smaller stores and that kind of format and realized that's what they were in for, they probably would have stuck around for a while. But they tried to do kind of everybody else's game with, the HGTVs on the cover of the circulars and all that kind of stuff. And it just never panned out for them. So I think that each retailer really has to figure out like what the immediate need is for the things in their space, and they're going to have to figure that out. So it's like the same thing like when we used to be at Walmart, is like, what is the benefit of going to Walmart today versus having Amazon deliver to your door in 2 days? And so when you think about what that is and why you actually have to have a kind of brick and mortar retail space, then I think that retailers are going to start to sort of find their niche. But until then, Amazon's going to continue to just hammer it out and take business, I think. And so from my perspective, the lucky part about me is I'm not actually kind of restricted to retail. I've done it because it's super fast paced. And so for me, that's enjoyable. But there's definitely other kind of fast-paced industries that I'm going to probably have to look to as a marketer and sort of get out of. One of the more interesting spaces for me that I haven't really explored as much is kind of like personal marketing and personal PR. I find it super fascinating to kind of be a brand manager of like a human in a way. And so when you think about like Tiger Woods, great golf example of someone who just really didn't do their PR right when something went wrong, and kind of how you would have approached that if you had Tiger as your client as a kind of management of his brand.
Awesome. Well, this podcast could be a great jumpstart for your own personal brand, huh?
Yeah, there we go. From Austin podcast all the way to the world. I like it.
One more question popped into my head. You're a super motivated, driven person.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, where does that come from? Is it something that you started in an early age where your parents push you? Like, really, what do you feel is the driving force that is behind you?
I think that I always had a lot of energy, and I think that my parents realized I was pretty bright as a kid. And so my mom, I credit my mom and dad because they just did a really good job of funneling in kind of those two things to like a productive outlet versus like where I could have gone with it probably, and probably where I was more motivated to go with it when I was younger. They just really made it about the fact of kind of in the same way that you motivate me sometimes at workouts where you're like, there's no reason you shouldn't be under 12 minutes for this. Kind of the same way with them. It was like, they were just like, there's no reason why you shouldn't get all A's. And they were right. Like school was easy for me. And I will readily admit I was one of those people who all that stuff came easy to. But it also made me kind of not focus on it because it was so easy. It didn't feel like I was really doing anything or winning anything in a way. And so my parents sort of made it be like, well, you may not be winning something, but you're definitely losing if you're not kind of being the best that you are. So, they weren't that house where they let you take home a participation trophy. Like you had to earn it. So I think that probably 18 years of that just eventually got into my system.
Awesome. So just really, you're a badass. You're a woman. And you're kicking ass and taking names. So, in this age, 2016, how has your role in the marketplace as a woman, how have you felt about it? How's it been for you?
Yeah, so I've been super fortunate to have a ton of really good female leadership at different companies that I worked for or just kind of through my network that I've been in touch with a lot. And they've always sort of approached it the same way I have. Like, we almost don't really look at it as like, oh, we're kind of the girls in this industry and we have to stick together. Like, we're not forming like a girls club in the background by ourselves. We just figure out a way to sort of take advantage of kind of having the two sides. So everybody on my team knows I'm incredibly disciplined. I'm incredibly firm. I will negotiate against anyone, and it doesn't bother me. But at the same time, like, they also know that I have like this really nurturing like side where I want to help them and I want to help their career. So I actually think that kind of having the dichotomy is like great, and has really helped me. It's helped me earn trust with my teammates, but it's also helped me like kind of earn respect of the fact that like I can go back and forth between both.
And when you say go back and forth between both, what are you talking about?
Kind of being like super forceful, I think, is what people mostly feel like girls don't do a good job of in the industry. Or if they do a good job of it, they're very abrasive. And so being able to be like firm and disciplined, but at the same time, like still be like a nice, caring, warm person, I think is kind of where our balance has always kind of fit.
Mm-hmm. So you're kind of like talking about carrying a masculine, feminine,
exactly,
type of persona in the workplace.
Right. It's like, I think that from like a pure stereotype, like people expect, girls to kind of be like the softer ones. They're, they might get emotional in the workplace. They care more about their feelings versus guys just care about results and, the, be all end all at the end of it. So it's, when you learn to sort of like figure out what the good parts of each are, is like, obviously the warmer person has people who are willing to do anything for them because they like working for them and, they'll go above and beyond. But then like the tougher people are the ones who usually get the contracts and get the bids. And so I think that if you can figure out a way to balance both, then you're kind of the best of both worlds. All right. Great, Cassandra. Thanks again. Cool. Thanks. Thank you so much for joining us on the Amplified Podcast. You can find more at theamplifiedpodcast.com. Our social links to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Join us in conversation. Let us know what you're thinking and how we can best service you guys. We will see you again really soon.